StraighTallDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is studying versus consuming. There is a difference. I will explain that difference as we get into today's episode. But before we get into it, I remind all of y'all that I have a daily motivation text that I send out for free every single morning to everybody in my text community. This message is guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day. You want to be that, so you want to get this text. Text me at my number, 305-384-6894. And every morning when the daily motivation text goes out, because you're a member of my text community, you'll be getting that message straight to your phone free of charge. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is where I do all my coaching, all my high-level trainings, frameworks, and courses are inside the university. You want access to that stuff, so just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, where you can not only see testimonials and case studies and feedback of people who have worked with us in the past, you also can schedule a time to get on a call with us free of charge. We call this a game session. In that game session, we're going to figure out where you're at, where you want to go, and how we could possibly help you get there, if we can help you get there. And if we can, we will tell you what it will look like to keep working with us moving forward. You'll get massive value just from that call alone. So you should take us up on that offer. But the way you do all of that, the only way you can do any of it, is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. The link's down below in the description to this episode. All that out the way, let's get into today's topic, which is studying versus consuming, and understanding that there is a difference. Now, you're listening to someone who's written 33 books and put out nearly 3,000 episodes of this show, which, along with my YouTube material and written material, articles and blog posts and such, make for 20,000 pieces of content. And we can't quantify how long it would take you to read stuff, but over 10,000 hours of material just in the stuff that we can count between the videos and audio. 10,000 plus hours of material. Many of you have consumed a good amount of this material, but there's a problem. If you are merely consuming the material and doing nothing else with it, then it may not help you go anywhere. It may make you feel good in the moment, which is, I guess, that's worth something. But as far as going somewhere and making real progress, just consuming information is not enough. Today, we're going to talk about what you really need to do with the stuff you take in, which is more than merely consuming the information. Point number one. Topic, once again, is studying versus consuming. They are not the same. Understand that studying does not mean you are casually consuming material. You listen to every episode I ever put out of this show, you have not studied the material, you consumed the material. All right, everybody listen to this went to school, right? For at least some amount of time. Let's assume you went up through high school. Remember when you studied for a test? Let's say if you went to college, those of you who are college students or college grads, think about the SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test, for example, or any of you who went to medical school or law school, or you had to apply for and pass the test for a real estate license. When you studied for those tests, did you merely glance at the material one time and consider yourself prepared? Did you watch one or two videos and say, okay, I'm good, I'm ready to go to take that test and pass it? Of course not. You went over the material multiple times until you knew the material without looking at the source. And you actually knew the material, as opposed to in school when we just had a flash memory and remembered it long enough to pass the test, but we can't recall any of it now. You actually had to learn the material because you knew you were going to actually go apply this in your real life after the test was over, as opposed to school where you just pass the test and then you can forget a bit. You can dump it out of your flash memory, your RAM, your random access memory, because it doesn't matter if you don't know it anymore the next day. But you, real estate people, lawyers, medical people who had to take real tests for your real life, you had to retain that information because you were going to actually use it in your real life, in a real situation. You didn't just glance at the information. You examined it from multiple angles. You went over it multiple times. You even let other people quiz you on it. You went and took practice tests on it. You went and tested yourself on it. You read it more than once. You took time to think about what you were consuming, actually think about it, and about how it applies to you and how you could apply it in different ways and in different scenarios, because you understood you would actually need to do this when you got into your real life, whatever it was going to be. Any material that you actually know, I'm not talking about you memorize it, material that you actually know, this is what you do in order to get there. Any of you who actually knows material, you know it because of the repetition of the consumption of the material. You know it because you have studied it from different angles. You know it because you maybe have dealt with other people who looked at it differently from you, or just had a better understanding of it than you, or more experience with it than you, and they gave you some insights and some angles from which to look at the situation. This is how you actually get to know material. You cannot just watch, read, or listen to something one time and consider that some form of accomplishment. It doesn't mean anything. Even a book. You read a book one time, you got my book the third day, you read the book one time, okay. Tell me how you applied the third day principles in your life. You need to read the book again. Read it a third time, read it a fourth and fifth time. That's when you're going to really start knowing the material, and then you'll probably start applying it. Most human beings do not apply information that they hear the first time that they hear it, or read it, or see it, or experience it in whatever form. Most people do not apply information the first time that they hear it. This is why we have this concept called spaced repetition. You consume material more than one time, over and over and over again, over an extended period of time, because that's how you actually come to learn it and know it. Think about your favorite songs and your favorite music. Did you know all the words to your favorite song because you listened to the song one time? No, you listened to the song over and over and over and over again, to the point that because you listen to it so much that now you know the words without even needing the song to be playing in the background. You can sing it. Why? Because you listen to it more than once. Spaced repetition. Very rarely does someone just go apply some information the first time they hear it, especially if that information is counterintuitive to what you showed up believing. Now, if you showed up already agreeing with it and then you hear something, you might go apply that, but you were already applying it. You were already heading in that direction. Now, if someone gives you some counterintuitive information that makes sense to you, what are the chances that you actually went and applied that immediately? Very small, very small. And I talk to a lot of people every day. It is not an accomplishment to consume something one time. It, for the most part, means very little. All it does is give a stat to the person who created it. Like, hey, I can say that I sold one more copy of my book. There's one more listener to my podcast. There's one more viewer of my YouTube video. But besides that, nothing actually happened. Doesn't mean a damn thing to consume material one time. Unfortunately, many of you have been conditioned to do this, and you reward yourself for it, this passive consumption habit, as if you have accomplished something. You have done absolutely nothing just by consuming material. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is studying versus consuming. There is a difference. Number 2, merely consuming information, as I just said, doesn't mean anything. Reading a book one time is not studying. You got a copy of my book, The Mirror of Motivation. You can get both The Mirror of Motivation and The Third Day for free, by the way. Just cover the shipping. If you go to, mirrorofmotivation.com or thirddaybook.com, respectively. Either one of those books, just cover the shipping. We'll send you a free copy of the book. We'll offer you a bunch of other books in the process as well. If you are so inclined to really go above and beyond, you're a big reader, we'll offer you a bunch of other books in addition to the one that we're enticing you with. But reading a book alone is not studying. Watching a YouTube video is not studying. Going to a conference and taking notes on everything that you saw is not studying. See, the ubiquity of the internet, the ubiquity of content, and everyone becoming a producer in some way has led to many people in our population becoming pigs. P-I-G-S. You never heard me use that acronym. A pig is a professional information gatherer. Many people have become professional information gatherers simply because there is so much information, or at least what you want to call information. Some of it is not real information, but there's so much of it out there that it's very easy to passively just consume so much of it, because there's so much that you'll never run out. You could fill your entire day just consuming information and feeling like you're doing something because of that consumption of information, but you haven't applied anything. So it doesn't really matter. Only thing you're helping is you're helping the algorithmic outcomes of whomever's material you are consuming, but you're not helping yourself because you didn't apply anything. You just consumed it. You're gathering information, going over it in a cursory way, skimming the surface one time, then accumulating as much of those one-time skims of the surface as possible, as if this is going to help you move forward. It is not. And I want to warn you against these time, attention, and energy wasting habits. This is a poor use of your resources. To consume something one time and not do anything with what you consume is a poor use of resources, because you're not going to retain 98% of what you consumed within, let's say, about 72 hours, 98% of what you consume, you'll have forgotten. And the 2% that you do retain, how much of it is actually being used for an actual application, real life action-based application? For most of you, you can't even answer that question. It's never even occurred to you because, again, you have made yourself into a professional information gatherer and didn't even know that there was a such thing as a professional information gatherer. Well, there is, and you are one of them. So you can't just go over information in this cursory way as if it's doing something. It is not. And is a habit that is costing you significant chunks of your most valuable resources: time, money, attention, energy, and focus. This is a mental masturbation. It feels good in the process of doing it, but ultimately it's doing nothing for you to move you forward. So don't tell me how many books you have read or how many courses you have taken or even how many episodes of my show you have listened to. I'd rather you tell me what you have done to apply what you read in my books or courses of mine that you've taken or episodes that you listened to. Tell me what you have actually done. Tell me what you applied based on what you heard, read, or watched. That's what I want to know, because those are results. And over here at Work on Your Game, we stress this. We are in a performance and results-based business. It's not a consumption-based business. Even though I put out a lot of material to be consumed, you can consume it, but the whole point is not to just to consume it. Consuming is the first step. Next step after you consume something is you need to figure out some application steps and go apply something. So if all you did was consume the information, you didn't do anything else, then that's not the goal. I would say, I'm not even going to say that I failed. Definitely not going to say I failed. I'm not going to say that you failed either, but I'm going to say the goal is producing an actual result, doing something. You didn't do anything, then what'd you do? What was the point of you even consuming the information? Now, my show, again, this is not entertainment. Now, if you're consuming an entertainment show, no, Love and Hip Hop or some podcast out there that's just there for strictly for entertainment purposes, then fine. You don't have to do anything. There's nothing to apply for them because they're not giving you anything to apply. So what can you apply? You have to kind of come up with it on your own. And sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes it's just pure entertainment, some of these shows, and they're not there to help you move forward. They're just there to suck up your time while you watch those people live their lives and talk about what they want to talk about. And then they monetize your attention and they get paid off the fact that you are watching their life. Told you about this in episode 1690, by the way, if you didn't listen to it. So tell me what has actually been produced results-wise from your constant consumptions. When you pull a book off your shelf at home, tell me exactly what you implemented in your life from that book. What you implemented to your business from that book. If you can't answer the question, then you reading the book was a waste of your most valuable resource, your time. Not to say that reading the book is necessarily a complete waste. I mean, it's better than you watching some porn for the same 3 hours as to read the book, even if you did nothing with it. But reading the book alone, I mean, we don't want to have our standards be as better than porn. I want our standards to be, I took this information, I consumed it, I applied it. Here's the difference that I got. Here's the change that I made. That's what we want to know. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is studying versus consumption. They are not the same thing. To study a topic, number 3. To study a topic, you must immerse yourself in the subject matter. Is everyone familiar with this word, immerse? To immerse yourself in the subject matter. I'm going to give you the definition of immerse, so we're all on the same page here. It means to dip or submerge in a liquid. Another definition is to involve oneself deeply in a particular activity of interest. Let me say that one again. To immerse means to involve oneself deeply in a particular activity or interest. You want to study a topic, you need to get deeply into that particular topic of interest, and you need to immerse yourself in that topic. That means you are not only reading it, but studying it. Not only hearing it, but listening to it. Not only knowing about it, but applying and implementing it. Not just understanding it, but holding yourself accountable for what you now understand. This is what it means to study a topic. When you're actually studying, you got all those pieces in place. Shall I say them again? Don't just read it, study. Don't just hear it, listen. Don't just know about it, apply it, and implement it. Don't just understand it, but hold yourself accountable for what you understand. That's what studying looks like. This is what people who actually know things do. And this is how they come to know them. As opposed to people who consume things and don't really know anything. They think they know stuff, but they don't actually know anything. Knowing things is not about having a particular opinion, by the way, or nor is it about going with or against the grain of the consensus. Just because you go against the grain does not necessarily mean that you know what you're talking about. Just because you are with the grain, in other words, you're on the side of the majority, does not necessarily mean that you know what you're talking about. If you're not at the level of being an expert on a subject, then you're not qualified to do something like teaching a subject. See, if you want to know what you really know on a subject, you got to be at the level where you can teach it. Knowing things means you're not just consuming, not just doing, but you have a high enough level of knowledge to where you can teach it. You don't really know something until you can teach it. You don't truly know it until you get paid to teach it. That's how it works. You think you really know something, that means you should be in the front of the room teaching it to people, and there should be people coming to you looking to hear what you have to say. If that's not happening, if that doesn't exist in your life right now, not all is not lost for you, but you don't know your subject as well as you think you do. If you think you know a subject that well, then you should be able to teach it, period. Can you teach a class on this? Can you teach a class on this and take up 45 minutes of calendar time without looking at your notes? Can you teach on this subject? If you can't, you don't know it that well. You're still a student. So you need a level of knowledge high enough that you could actually teach the subject. And again, you don't really know something until you can teach it. You don't truly know it until you get paid to teach it. If you're not at that level on the subject yet, then the unfortunate truth is you don't know shit. You are not at that level on the subject. You don't know shit. You are a consumer. You are a bystander. There's nothing wrong with being a consumer, as nobody is expert level at everything. There's some things that I'm a consumer at too. But the thing at which you want to or claim to be an expert, if you say you're an expert at something, you need to have this level of understanding. You need to have this level of understanding that leads you to studying your expertise, your area of expertise, not just consuming material in your area of expertise, because that's what experts do. Experts study, so they know everything that's going on in their space, every possible mistake they've made, they've seen it, they know what's coming, and they can deal with it. That's what an expert does. So if you're an expert at your thing, again, you're not just consuming, you're studying. You're figuring out what makes sense about this. Why does this make sense? Why does this not make sense? What are people not seeing that I can help them see? What are people seeing that I need them to unsee? Those are your jobs when you're expert level of what you do. When you're charging money for your thing, you got to be able to explain it. You got to make it make sense to yourself so you can make it make sense to others. And we can raise the whole level of everybody if everybody was to do this. Now, everybody's not going to do it, but at least you and your circle can do it. So let's recap today's class, which is studying versus consuming. There is a difference. Now, I've put out a lot of material, 20,000 pieces of material over the years, but the challenge is when people are merely consuming material but not doing anything else with it. So let's talk about what that means. Number one, studying means casual consumption. So if you went to school, when you studied for a test, you took the SAT, for example, medical school, law school, you studied for that exam to make sure you could pass it and make sure that you actually knew the material. You were not flash memorizing it. You were actually knowing it because you knew you would need to actually use it after the test was over. Point number two, merely consuming information means nothing. Reading a book is not studying. Watching YouTube equally is not studying. Going to a conference is not studying. The ubiquity of the internet content and everyone becoming a producer in some ways has led to many people in our population becoming these professional information gatherers. You're just gathering information, skimming information on the surface level, and you're not doing anything with it. So don't tell me how many books you read. I'm not impressed with how many books you read. I will be impressed though. You can show me what you have implemented based on a book that you read. I'd rather you read one book and apply stuff than read 100 books and do nothing, because what value are you giving us? You're not doing anything. Point number three, to study a topic, you must immerse yourself in said topic. That means you're not only reading it, but studying it, not just hearing it, but listen, not only knowing, but applying it and implementing it. It's not just understanding it, but holding yourself accountable for what you now understand. All right, this is what it means to study a topic. This is what people who actually know things, as opposed to people who actually consume things, do. Understand, knowing is not about having a certain opinion or going against the grain of the consensus. Knowing things means you are not only consuming, not only doing, but have a high level of knowledge to where you could actually teach. So if you are not quite at that level yet, I just gave you a primer on what to do, and I'll tell you the next couple of things you can do. Number one, text me. Let me know you want to get my daily motivation that I send out for free every morning. My number is 305-384-6894. Secondly, work on your game university. That is where I do all my high level coaching, training, all my courses and frameworks are there. You want to see testimonials from people who worked with us in the past. you would like to get our free 6-figure entrepreneur training, you want to schedule a time to get on a call with me or somebody on my team so we can talk about where you're at and where you want to go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all